Hey, my name's Ryan Cooper. I'm 30 years old, born and raised in South Boston, but I've been working as a paramedic for Seattle Fire Department for the past 8 years. Not the heroic kind you see in movies. Most days I'm cleaning up drunks who fell off bar stools, transporting elderly folks with chest pains that turn out to be indigestion, or dealing with overdoses in the alleys behind Pike Place Market. I wear the same navy blue uniform that smells faintly of antiseptic no matter how many times I wash it, grab burnt coffee from the station pot at 5 a.m., and clock 72-hour shifts that blur into an endless loop of sirens, paperwork, and people at their absolute worst. My dad used to say I had a savior complex. Ryan, you can't fix everyone, he'd tell me over beers at our favorite dive bar in Southie before I moved west. That was 12 years ago, before the construction accident that crushed his spine, before Mom burned through their savings on experimental treatments that didn't work, before I watched him waste away in a hospital bed, unable to afford proper care because insurance denied the claims. He died when I was 22, angry and broken, and Mom followed 2 years later from a heart attack the doctor said was stress-induced. Code 4, grief killed her. I became a paramedic, thinking I could save people my parents' doctors couldn't. Turns out, the system doesn't care how hard you try. It just keeps grinding people down. But this past June, everything fell apart in new ways. My younger sister, Emma, 26, got diagnosed with lupus, the aggressive kind that attacks kidneys and requires treatments that cost $8,000 a month, even with insurance. She's a pastry chef at a small bakery in Portland, no benefits, barely making rent. I've been sending her $2,000 every paycheck, maxing out credit cards, taking double shifts until I'm hallucinating from exhaustion. Now I'm $94,000 in debt between her medical bills, my own student loans from the paramedic program, and the personal loans I took out to cover Dad's funeral expenses years ago that I never finished paying. The collectors call daily. My landlord slipped an eviction notice under my door last week, 4 months behind on a studio apartment in Capitol Hill that's basically a closet with a hot plate. Lately, I've been running on fumes and spite. 3 weeks ago, I collapsed during a shift from dehydration and sleep deprivation. My partner Jake had to cover for me, told our captain I had food poisoning. "Coop, you're gonna kill yourself," he said, shoving an energy drink into my hands. "What good are you to Emma dead?" He's right, but what choice do I have? I've tried everything. GoFundMe that raised $340, selling my dad's tools and my mom's jewelry for pennies, even considered selling plasma twice a week, but the pay's a joke. I spend nights staring at my phone, looking at the Emma's texts about how she's scared, how the treatments make her so sick she can't stand, and I feel this crushing weight of failure. How much can one person carry before they just break? That Thursday in late September started like any other emergency call. Dispatch crackled through at 11:47 a.m. Medic 17, respond to 2201 Bellevue Avenue, penthouse level, 42-year-old female, difficulty breathing, possible cardiac event. Bellevue Avenue, old money territory, where condos start at $5 million and the doormen wear white gloves. Jake and I grabbed our gear, hit the sirens, and pulled up to a gleaming high-rise with a marble lobby that looked like a museum. Security rushed us to a private elevator that opened directly into a penthouse with panoramic views of Puget Sound. The woman was on the floor of her bedroom, pale and gasping, one hand clutching her chest. Mid-40s, elegant even in distress, silk pajamas, dark hair streaked with silver, expensive skincare evident in the flawless complexion now tinged gray. But it was her eyes that caught me, sharp green eyes filled with fear, but also something else, resignation, like she'd been expecting this. Ma'am, I'm Ryan. This is Jake. We're going to help you. Can you tell me your name? I knelt beside her, checking her pulse, rapid, thready. Oxygen saturation at 89%. Not good. Catherine, she whispered. Catherine Harlow. It's not my heart. It's the cancer. Stage 4 pancreatic. Diagnosed 3 months ago. Her breath hitched. Tumors pressing on something feels like drowning. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The words hit me like a freight train. That's what killed my uncle in 6 weeks. Brutal, fast, and nearly always fatal. I glanced at Jake. His expression mirrored my thoughts. This wasn't a save. This was hospice level. We stabilized her enough to transport, got her to Swedish Medical Center's oncology wing within 20 minutes. As we wheeled her in, she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. Thank you, she said, her voice clearer now with the oxygen mask helping. You're kind. I can tell. I nodded, gave her hand a squeeze, and watched the ER team take over. Standard protocol, we don't follow up with patients, drop and go. But something about her stuck with me. Maybe it was the loneliness I saw in those eyes, the kind I recognized from watching my parents die in sterile rooms with no one but me. 2 weeks later, dispatch sent us to the same address, another breathing episode. This time, Catherine was conscious, sitting on her couch surrounded by pill bottles and medical equipment, a home nurse hovering nervously. I told them not to call, Catherine said when she saw me, her voice weak but annoyed. It's just part of the process, dying. But apparently Nurse Rachel panics. The nurse, a young woman in scrubs, looked mortified. Ms. Harlow, your oxygen dropped to 84%. Protocol requires. Protocol, Catherine interrupted, waving a dismissive hand, is designed to prolong suffering. But fine. Do your checks, Ryan. I ran through vitals while Jake radioed in, stable enough to refuse transport if she insisted, which she did. As Jake packed up our gear, Catherine studied me. You look exhausted, more than last time. How many shifts are you pulling? I blinked, surprised. That's not really your concern, ma'am. Humor a dying woman. How many? 6 this week, 72-hour rotations. Her eyebrows rose. That's illegal in most contexts. Why? I shouldn't have answered, but maybe it was the fatigue or the way she asked, not pity, just curiosity, that made me say, my sister's sick, medical bills. I do what I have to. Catherine nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something. I know that burden. I paid for my late husband's experimental treatments for 3 years, bankrupted my first business. He died anyway. She paused. How much do you owe? With all due respect, Ms. Harlow. Catherine, and I'm not being nosy. I'm considering something. Humor me? I sighed. $94,000. Give or take a few thousand in interest. I can't track anymore. She was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. I have a proposition, Ryan, but you'll think I'm insane, so I'll wait until you're desperate enough to listen. Come back in a month, if I'm still alive. Before I could respond, she dismissed us with a tired wave. Jake and I left, confused but too busy to dwell on it. 3 weeks later, we got the call again. But this time, Catherine was unconscious, her home nurse performing CPR. We rushed her to Swedish, lights and sirens, and I found myself praying, something I hadn't done since Mom died, that she'd make it. She did, barely. Spent a week in ICU. On day 6, her primary oncologist, Dr. Lynn, flagged me down in the hospital cafeteria. "You're the paramedic who keeps bringing in Catherine Harlow?" I nodded. "She's asking for you. Says it's urgent, non-medical." I found Catherine in a private room, hooked to IVs and monitors but awake, sharper than I'd seen her. "Ryan, sit." She gestured to the chair beside her bed. I sat, still in uniform, my shift about to start. "I'm dying. 6 months, maybe less. Dr. Lynn's being optimistic. I've refused further chemo. It's not working, just making me sicker." She paused, her eyes locking onto mine. "I don't want to die alone. I have money, more than I'll ever spend. I have a penthouse, assets, investments. But I have no one. My husband died 8 years ago. My son, Eric, lives in London, visits once a year out of obligation. My daughter, Sophia, is in New York, too busy climbing corporate ladders to care about her dying mother. They'll inherit everything, show up for the will reading, and forget I existed." I didn't know what to say, so I stayed quiet. She continued, "I want someone who'll sit with me, talk to me, make the last months bearable. In exchange, I'll pay off every cent of your debt, cover your sister's treatments for life, and give you $200,000 cash when I'm gone." My heart stopped. $200,000? Yes, but there's a condition. We have to be married. The room spun. Married? Why? Because my estate includes a trust set up by my late husband's family. It stipulates that if I die unmarried, 70% of my assets go to a foundation I despise, one his family controls. If I'm married, everything goes to my spouse, who can distribute it as I've outlined in my will. You'd be my husband for 6 months, maybe less. When I die, you inherit, follow the will's instructions to give most to charities I've chosen, keep your $200,000, and walk away. It's transactional, clinical, but it lets me die with someone who gives a damn, and it gives you a future. I stared at her, my mind racing. This was insane. Marry a dying woman for money? Catherine, you think it's wrong, I understand. But Ryan, I've watched you. You're drowning trying to save your sister. I'm drowning in loneliness. We can help each other. Think about it. You have 3 days. Then the offer expires. She closed her eyes, exhausted. I left the room, my head spinning. That night, I called Emma, told her about the offer, expecting her to be horrified. Instead, she was quiet. "Rye, if this woman's serious, if it saves my life and gives you a chance to breathe, I think you should do it. It's not like you're hurting anyone. She's offering. You need it. And maybe you can give her something real. You're good at that." Her blessing broke something in me. 2 days later, I returned to Catherine's hospital room. "I'll do it, but I have conditions. We're honest with each other, no lies. And if you get sicker, I'm there, not as a paycheck, as whatever you need." She smiled a real smile and extended her hand. Deal. We were married 3 weeks later in a quiet courthouse ceremony. Catherine wore a simple cream dress. I wore a borrowed suit. Her lawyer and nurse were witnesses. No family, no fanfare, just 2 desperate people making a deal. I moved into the penthouse that afternoon, into a guest room that was bigger than any place I'd ever lived. That first night, we sat on opposite ends of her massive living room couch, strangers bound by paperwork, and she asked, "So, husband, what do we do now?" I laughed, the absurdity hitting me. "I have no idea. But how about we start with dinner? I make a mean spaghetti." She smiled. "That sounds perfect." The first month of our arrangement was awkward and oddly domestic. Catherine's health stabilized, or rather plateaued. Bad days where she couldn't leave bed, good days where she'd sit on the terrace overlooking the Sound, sipping herbal tea and watching the ferries cross the gray water. I adjusted my shifts to part-time, her lawyer having transferred $94,000 to clear my debts and set up an account for Emma's treatments. The relief was indescribable. For the first time in years, I could breathe without panic crushing my chest. I cooked most nights, nothing fancy, just comfort food, lasagna, pot roast, homemade bread. Catherine would sit at the kitchen island, directing me with surprising knowledge of recipes. "My grandmother taught me to cook," she said one evening, watching me knead dough, "before I became too busy building a tech company to remember joy." "You built a tech company?" She nodded. "Sold it for $340 million in 2015. Then watched my husband die spending that money trying to beat cancer. Irony's a bitch. We talked. Hours and hours of conversation. She told me about growing up poor in rural Oregon, working 3 jobs to put herself through community college, meeting her husband at a startup incubator, building an empire while fighting sexism and imposter syndrome. I told her about Boston, my parents, the guilt of surviving when they didn't, the fear that I'd fail Emma the way I felt I'd failed them. "You didn't fail them," Catherine said one night, her voice firm. "The system failed them. You were a kid. You did your best." It wasn't enough. It never feels like enough when you love someone. But Ryan, carrying that guilt won't bring them back. It'll just kill you slower. By December, something shifted. Catherine started laughing more, real laughter, not polite chuckles. We watched terrible reality TV together, mocking the contestants. She taught me chess and destroyed me every game. I read to her on bad days, novels she loved, poetry she'd forgotten. One night, curled under a blanket on the couch, she fell asleep against my shoulder. I didn't move, didn't want to wake her. Nurse Rachel found us in the morning and smiled knowingly. She looks peaceful, first time in months. Christmas was approaching, and Catherine insisted we decorate. I haven't celebrated in years. Humor me. We bought a massive tree, strung lights, hung ornaments. She told stories about each one, ornaments from childhood, from travels with her husband, from Christmases with Eric and Sophia when they were small. "Do they know about us?" I asked. She shook her head. "Eric knows I'm sick. Sophia knows. Neither has visited. They'll find out I remarried when I'm dead. Let them be shocked." But then, the impossible happened. Catherine's January oncology appointment brought news that stopped time. Dr. Lynn sat us down, her expression unreadable. "Catherine, your latest scans show something unexpected. The tumors shrunk significantly, by about 40%. Silence. Catherine's hand found mine, squeezing hard. "What?" "It's rare, but not unheard of. Spontaneous regression. Or perhaps the chemo you did months ago is finally taking effect with a delay. We need more tests, but there's a chance. A real chance. The next weeks, were a whirlwind of scans, biopsies, consultations. Each result came back better than the last. Tumor shrinking, markers improving. Dr. Lin used words like remission cautiously, but the hope in her eyes was real. By late February, Catherine was declared in remission. Not cured, pancreatic cancer's too vicious for that, but stable. Potentially years left, not months. We should have been celebrating. Instead, we sat in the penthouse living room, the weight of what this meant crushing us both. "You married a dying woman," Catherine said quietly. "I was supposed to be gone by now. The deal was 6 months. It's been 5. You've fulfilled your end. We can annul this. You have your money. Emma's covered. You're free." I should have agreed. Should have taken the out. But somewhere between spaghetti dinners and chess games and her falling asleep on my shoulder, the lines blurred. "What if I don't want to be free?" I said. She looked at me, eyes wide. "Ryan, I know this wasn't supposed to happen, but Catherine, I like this. Us. You're not just a patient I'm sitting with. You're my friend, maybe more, and I don't want to walk away just because you're not dying anymore." She was silent for a long time. "You're 30. I'm 42. You signed up to be a companion for a dying woman, not a husband to someone who might live another decade. This isn't fair to you." "Fair? Catherine, nothing about my life's been fair. My parents died broke. My sister got lupus at 25. Fair doesn't exist. But this? Us? It's the first thing in years that feels right. Don't take it away because it's not what we planned." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm scared. Scared you'll wake up one day and resent me. Scared my kids will destroy you when they find out. Scared this remission's temporary and you'll have to watch me die anyway." I pulled her close, her head against my chest. "Then we'll deal with it. Together. Not as a contract. As whatever we are. Real." Spring brought complications. Eric and Sophia, having heard through the grapevine that Catherine was in remission, suddenly wanted to visit. Probably smelling the inheritance slipping away. Catherine muttered, reading Sophia's email demanding to come see her miracle recovery. They arrived in April. Eric, 40, a banker with his father's cold eyes and a British accent he'd adopted to seem sophisticated, and Sophia, 38, a corporate lawyer in designer suits and thinly veiled hostility. Dinner that first night was tense. Catherine introduced me simply as my husband, Ryan. The explosion was immediate. "Husband?" Sophia's voice could have shattered glass. "When? How? Mother, what is this?" "We married in October. Ryan's been taking care of me through my treatment." Eric's eyes narrowed. "And now that you're miraculously better, he's still here. How convenient." I stayed quiet, letting Catherine handle it, but Sophia turned on me. "Let me guess. Paramedic salary, what, 60K a year? Must be nice landing a woman worth 9 figures. "Sophia?" Catherine's voice cracked like a whip. "Enough." "No, Mom. You were dying, vulnerable. This man clearly took advantage. I offered, so I pursued him. Ryan had no idea who I was or what I was worth, so he agreed to sit with a dying woman because he's kind, something you two wouldn't understand. The fight escalated. Eric accused me of elder abuse. Sophia threatened to sue for undue influence. Catherine kicked them both out, her hands shaking with rage. "Get out of my house. When you can treat my husband with respect, you're welcome back. Until then, you're dead to me." They left, promising legal action. That night, Catherine collapsed in my arms, sobbing. "I'm sorry, they're awful. I raised them with nannies and boarding schools, and they turned into their father's family, cold and greedy." "Hey," I whispered, "we'll handle it." Handle it, we did. Sophia filed a lawsuit claiming I'd coerced Catherine into marriage. The case was flimsy. Catherine's medical records and lawyer testified she was of sound mind. But it dragged through courts for months, dragging our names through Seattle society pages. "Gold digger paramedic preys on cancer patient," one headline screamed. Catherine wanted to fight publicly, but I convinced her to stay quiet. "Let the evidence speak. We know the truth." Amid the chaos, something beautiful happened. We fell in love. Not the desperate arrangement of before, but real, messy, complicated love. Catherine started attending my niece's soccer games with me, cheering louder than anyone. I took her camping in the Cascades, teaching her to fish. We fought about stupid things. She hated my taste in music. I hated her habit of leaving coffee cups everywhere and made up Tangled in sheets, laughing. One night in June, a year after we'd met, lying on the terrace under the stars, she asked, "Do you regret it?" Saying yes. I turned to face her, tracing her cheek. "Not for a second. You saved me, Catherine, not just financially. You reminded me I'm allowed to be happy, that surviving isn't the same as living." She kissed me, soft and deep. "You saved me too," gave me a reason to fight, to want tomorrow. The lawsuit was dismissed in August. Sophia and Eric, facing public backlash for attacking their sick mother, dropped contact entirely. Catherine revised her will, leaving them each $1 million, more than they deserve, and the rest to charities and me. Not that I cared about the money anymore. In September, exactly a year after that first 911 call, Catherine's scans came back clear, full remission. Dr. Lynn called it a medical miracle. We celebrated with Emma, who'd flown in from Portland, healthy and vibrant, thanks to the treatments Catherine funded. "You two are disgusting," Emma teased, watching us slow dance in the living room to jazz. Like a Hallmark movie came to life. Catherine laughed. Says the woman who cried when Ryan proposed to me for real, because I had. 3 months prior, with a simple silver band and a speech about how she'd become my reason for everything, I'd asked her to marry me again. Not for money or contracts, just because I couldn't imagine life without her. She'd said yes through tears. Our second wedding was everything the first wasn't. Small but joyful, Emma, Jake, Catherine's few real friends, and surprisingly, Nurse Rachel as maid of honor. We exchanged vows on the same terrace where we'd spent countless nights talking, promising not just 6 months, but forever. "I thought I was hiring a companion," Catherine said, her voice shaking. "Instead, I found my soulmate. You bet on a dying woman, Ryan Cooper. Thank you for not giving up when I didn't die." I kissed her as the Seattle sunset painted the sky gold. Best investment I ever made. So, 5 years later, I'm 35, Catherine's 47, and we're still defying odds. Her cancer remains in remission. She's part of a medical study now, her case studied as a statistical anomaly. We sold the penthouse, too many bad memories, and bought a farmhouse outside Seattle with land for the garden Catherine always wanted. I still work as a paramedic, part-time because I love it. Catherine consults for biotech startups, mentoring young founders. Emma's married now, healthy, running her own bakery. She named it Cooper's Hope after us. Eric and Sophia never reconciled with Catherine. We've made peace with that. Some families, the one you choose. Jake's my best friend, uncle to the daughter Catherine and I adopted last year, a 3-year-old named Lily from foster care, because we had room in our lives and hearts. People still whisper about us sometimes. The dying woman and the paramedic, the May-December romance, the contract that became real. Let them talk. We know our truth. On quiet mornings, I watch Catherine in the garden, sun in her silver hair, and I'm grateful for that September day. Grateful she lived. Grateful I said yes, because sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is bet on hope when all logic says to walk away. And sometimes, against all odds, hope wins. That's our secret. Not small town, not simple, but ours, unbreakable.